All right, in this video we're going to be talking about the semester review 1. So we are pulling back a whole bunch of stuff from the first unit. So hopefully you remember how to do all this stuff, and it's going to be relatively simple. All right, let's go and get started. Question number 1. John's TV has an aspect ratio of 16:9, and he's watching a flower show with an aspect ratio of 21:9, the width of the TVs. All right, so I went ahead and took John's TV, which is right here, and I went ahead and cut it into two rectangles. This big rectangle represents the actual TV itself. This right here represents the flower show. Okay. Now, when I read it, it says that the TV has an aspect ratio of 16:9. All right. So the aspect ratio is going to be 16:9. I'm just going to write that there. And then the flower show has an aspect ratio of 21:9. I'm just going to have to write it right there. All right. Next, if you notice, the width of the TV is 50 inches. All right. So the width of the TV. Now notice that the TV, as well as the actual flower show, has the same exact width. So I'm going to put that 50. The height is X. I have no idea what that is. And I'm going to go ahead and do the flower show over here. That is 50. This is X. Now, if you remember this from last unit, you need the aspect ratio, which is 16:9. You need the height. You need the width. Okay, you need those four numbers because you're going to create a proportion. Now, if you remember, the proportion is always going to be width over height. Okay, so my proportion I'm going to be writing all over here is going to be 16/9 is equal to, this is where a lot of students screw up, 50/x. All right, you're going to cross multiply, and the height of the TV screen ends up being, rounded to the nearest whole, ends up being 28. All right, so let's fill some of this stuff out. The height of the TV is 28. The width of the TV was given to us, that's 50. So I'm going to multiply these two together because 28 times 50 is how I find area of a rectangle. That ends up being 1400. All right, now the height of the show, exact same question, different numbers. So let me highlight again. Here's my aspect ratio. Here's my width. Here's my unknown height. Same exact thing as the last time. 21/9 is equal to 50/x. Cross multiply and solve. The height of the show ends up being 21. The width of the show already given to us, that was 50. So the area of the show, we're just going to simply take 21, 1 times by 50. You do the math, you get 1050. And so what percentage of the black bars do they occupy? If you remember, the way you do this is, and that is you take, basically you find the difference. That's supposed to be difference, it looks weird. The difference of the area over the total area. Now what that looks like is, this, we'll do this in red so it stands out. The difference of the areas is 1400 minus 1050. Divide that by 1400. All right, so I'm going to write over here because I ran out of room. That would be 350 divided by 1400, and you get 25%. Very, very simple. All right, next question. All right, number 2. If a tire has a sidewall size of 6 inches and the circumference of this, find the size of the rim. That's the bell. We're going to keep rolling though. Sidewall is 6. We're looking for the rim. The circumference is 94.2. I'm going to divide that by 3.14 because I got to find the height. That ends up being 30. So seeing my picture here allows me to see the problem. So 30 is the entire height, but notice you have two of these sidewalls measuring 6. So to find out the rim, very simply, I'm just going to take 30, subtract 6, subtract 6. What I'm left with is an 18-inch rim. All right, next one. At ABC Corp, all employees will be issued new ID cards for security purposes. The ID cards will have 3 letters code. All right, so the code will contain 2 letters. So I'm going to put the letters being the first 2 blanks, and then my digit, which is this guy right here, and 1 digit. All right, so the 2 letters is A through F. So A, B, C, D, E, F. All right, that's 6. go. That's 6. Now the digit is 1 through 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Must have hit the wrong button there. Come on now. All right. Now here is the little hint. The digit could be anywhere in the code. There's 3 blanks on where that digit could be. I'm going to times it by 3. You do the math, you get 540. 540 possible things here. All right. In the Metro Atlanta area, the phone numbers. This should be easy because we have done so many of them. You put 7 blanks. The first digit phone number cannot be numbers 0 through 5, so it means it's got to be a 6 through 9 situation, which 6 through 9 situation is 4 possibilities. Then the second and third numbers cannot be 0 or 1, so that's a 2 through 9 situation for both of these. That is 8 possibilities, 8 possibilities. And then let's see, the fourth, fifth, and sixth numbers cannot be 0, so that's a 1 through 9, fourth, 1 through 9, and 6. All right, that's 9 possibilities. And then there's no restrictions on the last one, so that's a 0 through 9, which is 10. We're going to multiply all those. 1,866,240. Now, continue from the previous question. If the phone number adopted 3 more area codes for a total of 4, how many phone numbers could be possible? Well, I'm just going to take this answer and times it by 4. 7,464,960 possibilities. Because having 4 area codes quadruples the amount of possibilities. The field has been divided into 3 zones. All right, so we've had this question several times. The first thing I need to do is find the square footage. So I'm going to take the width of one zone and multiply it by the height or width and length, however you want to say it. So the square footage is 3,000. The square footage of zone 2 is 5,000, I'm sorry. And then the square footage of zone 3 is 2,500. And then I'm going to create a proportion. And the proportion says for zone 1, 2.5 square feet per person. So I'm going to go 1 over 2.5 is equal to x over 3,000. Cross multiply and solve. I can fit 120 people in zone 1. Zone 2, 1 over 4.5 is equal to x over 5,000. Do the math, and I can fit 1,111 people. Zone 3 is exactly like zones 1 and 2 as like how you're solving it. So it's 1 over 10, which is 10 square feet, x over 5,000, cross multiply and solve, and you get 5,500 people. You do the math, you add them all up, 1,481 people. For security reasons, the county will provide a cop for every 50 attendees. So I'm going to create a proportion, and it's going to be cop over, hold on, let's do this again. Cop over attendees. So 1 cop for 50 people will be X cops over 1481. Cross multiply and solve. I believe we're going to get a decimal, but I'm going to round to 30 cops. Question number 8, using a 5 by 5 foot square to estimate a crowd. Solve in terms of E. All right, if you remember, we have a square that we have no idea how many people could fit in there, so we need to bring in the E, which stands for our estimate once we find it. X over 16,500. Cross multiply and solve, and you get 6,600 E. Now, if 4 people can fit into the square, we're going to take 4, plug in for E, 2,640. All right, let's talk about a tire. Bill bought a new truck, and he now has new tires with that measurement. Remember, the first number is the width of the tire. The second number is the aspect ratio, which is a percentage. So to find the height of one sidewall, remember, you take the width and you times it by 0.70. Not divide it. Some folks are dividing. Don't divide it. 136.5 is my answer. I got to convert that height to inches. So I'm going to take 130, do it again, 136.5 and divide that by 25.4. I get a sidewall of 5.4 inches. Now, good thing I drew a picture because it allows me to work a little better. My sidewall is 5.4. This sidewall is 5.4. My height of the rim is the next number in the problem, 15. There you go, look at that, it's already drawn. That's perfect. I'm just going to add it up. 25.8. And the reason I got that is because I added everything in my picture. To find the circumference, I'm just going to put 25.8. And I'm going to times it by 3.1. My answer ends up being pretty close to 81 on the dot. Now to find K, remember it is the larger tire over the smaller tire. The larger tire had a circumference of 81. The smaller tire, if you go up into your directions, there you go, 71.56. 71.56. K ends up being 1.13. And I'm simply going to times it by 80,000. So the car thinks, oh, happened again. Press the button again. All right. I'm sure this thing's going to mess up in a second. We're just going to keep rolling. Oh, there it is. All right, so I'm just going to multiply 1.13 by 80,000 because the car thinks you're going 80,000, but in reality, that again. Going 90,000. Crazy. Stop doing that. Didn't think I was pressing anything. 90,400. That's how many miles. And I'm going to take K multiplied by 45. And I'm actually going 51 miles per hour. All right. John bought a TV, an older TV with a 4:3 ratio at Goodwill. Is 19 inches, and we need to solve for it. Let me highlight something to hopefully help us out here. The diagonal is 19. I need to find out what my height is. I need to find out what my width is. Hey, that's a triangle. I'm going to be doing Pythagorean theorem. So, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. This will become 4x because that represents the width. This becomes 3x because that represents the height. Remember, I'm using the aspect ratio. So it will be 4x squared plus 3x squared is equal to 19 squared. 4x squared ends up being 16x squared. 3x squared ends up being 9x squared. 19 squared ends up being, let's see off the top of my head, 361. Actually, it's not top of the head. I wrote it down somewhere else. 361. All right. Combining like terms, I get 25x squared is equal to 361. Divided by 25, I get x squared is equal to, let's see, 1444. And I'm simply going to square root both sides. X ends up being 3.8. Now, if you remember, you did all the hard work. Now it's time to reap the benefits. You're going to take 3.8, you're going to plug it in for 4x, and then you're going to plug it in for 3x to get the height and width. The width ends up being 15. The height ends up being 11, for the area being 165. And I got that because I took 15 times 11. Oh, excuse me, I'm yawning. Hopefully you're not yawning as you're listening to this too. All right, question number 12. You were in charge of finding a venue to host a fundraiser for a room measuring 175 by 120 feet, Fire marshal will allow, here we go, each person occupying 25 square feet. 1 over 25 is equal to how many people over whatever 175 times 120 is. I believe it's 21,000. Cross multiply and solve. 840 people, that's the max, which means can 875 go in there for a room that has a max of 840? The answer is no, can't do that. Oh goody, a parade question. All right, so you are standing on the sidewalk and watching a parade go by. Here are the observations you make. For the first 5 minutes, 500 people. All right, so please watch this. It's the same thing every single time. 500 is my rate. This is what I do every single time. I'm going to take my rate. I'm going to highlight it just because I can. And I am decreasing by 30%. So off to the side. Now, when you do this, do it neatly. Don't write all the way over here. All right, that just makes things confusing. Write it off to the side. All right, so 500 times 30%. I believe that ends up being 150. And then you subtract from 500. That gives you 350. All right. Now it says this rate decreases by 20%. Now my new rate is 350. I'm going to times that by 20%. I end up getting 70. But again, I'm going to subtract from 350 and I'm going to get 280. And it says this rate, so that's going to be 280. I'm going to have to write down here. 280 is being decreased by 40%. I'm going to times it by 40. I believe that's going to be 112. And I'm going to subtract. And I got an answer of 168. Once I get all my rates, I then times it by the minutes. So 500 times 5 minutes, 2,500. 350 times 4 minutes, 1,400. 280 times 4. What's that? 1120, I think. Yep. And then 168 times 3 gives me 504. I'm going to add all these numbers up. 5,524. There you go. All right, Sammy went to the discount tire store and bought a tire with a circumference of 96.2. The tire only has a warranty of 7,000. Man, this could make me tired. How many times will the tire have to rotate? All right, so I'm going to have to take my miles. I got to convert it to feet. I got to convert it to inches. My miles is 7,000. Times it by my feet, 5,280. I'm going to times that by 12. I'm going to get a huge number. I'm not going to write it down, just save time. Every time the tire rotates, you go 96.2 inches. So how many times does the tire have to go around and around and around? Well, divide by 96.2, we'll figure it out. 4,610,395 times. All right, question number 15. If a tire has a rim size of 14, okay, and the rim size, I don't even know I know what the rim size is, I don't know what the sidewall is. So both these two will be X's. I'm dealing with the circumference, which you should remember, you divide by 3.14. When you do that, you get 22. All right, so these three things add up to 22. So let's see, thinking, let's see, 2x plus 14. I'm just thinking in algebra skills here. Subtract 14, subtract 14. I end up with 2x is equal to 8, and then x equal to 4. All right, question number 16. All right, this question here, remember it is the area. Let me write it up here. area of the frame over area of the picture. Remember, we're only talking about this right here. Now, the area of the frame is simple because the width ends up being 13, the height ends up being 10. So what is the area of the frame? That's 130. All right, that's easy. Now let's take a look at the area of the picture. All right, so in order to get the area of the picture, I've got to, watch this, find out what that width is. That's 13. I've already used it. I don't need 13 anymore. That's done. So I have the width of the picture. I got the height of the picture, but I also have the width and the height of the smaller picture. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 numbers I'm going to use. 7 over 5 is equal to x over 10. Cross multiply and solve. And I believe x ends up being 14. So if the width is 14, if the height is 10, the area of the picture would be 140. So what percent does the original sketch have to be? Well, I'm just going to take 130 divided by 140. You're going to end up with 93%. All right, last one. All right, first off, let's go and do the aspect ratio. So the aspect ratio would be 64:36, but those things can be reduced. You reduce down to lowest, you get 16:9. All right, now the width is 64, the height, I'm just going to kind of write some stuff right here. Let's see, width is 64, the height is 36. I'm looking for my size. Size, that sounds familiar. Let me highlight it just to be on the safe side. All right, size, height, width. Hey, look at that, that's Pythagorean theorem. Oh, that's easy. So 64 squared plus 36 squared equals c squared. So if I can do this real quick. 64 squared, 4096 plus 36 squared, 1296 equals c squared. Add them together. 5392 equals c squared, and then I'm going to square root both. Square root, and I end up with a 73-inch TV. Awesome. The area, remember the area is always going to be width times height, so that is 64 times 36, 2304. And then remember the perimeter is the distance around the entire rectangle. So if the width is 64, this also will be 64, this also will be 34. So 36. Add it all up. You end up with 200. On that area was 2304. When I undid it, it took it away. Alrighty, well that's it. Hopefully you found this to be interesting. Hopefully this is nothing more than just say, oh yeah, I remember how to do this, as opposed to, what were we doing now? So, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you for watching.